while we were up here at the Wind River Reservation, I thought we would pay a visit to the grave of Sacagawea. Now, a lot of people believe that this is her grave, and I've also spoken to several people who don't believe it's her grave. In fact, I like to believe that she's buried somewhere along the old Oregon Trail because she continued being a guide for these early explorers. And the story, officially, as to why she's buried here, would have Lewis and Clark journeying up the river and directing Fort Mandan. And they stayed there from about 1804 to 1805, and because they were there, the French were very nearby in Quebec, and a man named Charbonneau came down. Now, by all accounts, Charbonneau was kind of just a local man. He wasn't really the skilled trapper that historians would like him to be. He was kind of a dirtbag. That was how I heard him described. And Charbonneau's wife was Sacagawea. And they journeyed along with Lewis and Clark, and Sacagawea was the main push for the journey. Sacagawea is truly what helped them succeed. Charbonneau was kind of just along for the ride. And somewhere along this journey, the man behind me, Baptiste Charbonneau, or they called him Little Pomp, he was born. And it's said that he was basically the youngest member of this expedition, but a lot of people also question, because it's pretty much just fact, that Little Pomp Charbonneau is buried over in eastern Oregon. He helped these explorers for the rest of his life, and in 1866, I believe, he died because he was older in age and he fell into a local river as they were trying to ford it, and he died of pneumonia. And he's buried there with a lot of pomp and circumstance. But this grave in eastern Oregon is pretty obvious. That is Little Pomp. Now, the story of Sacagawea is, once the Lewis and Clark expedition went back, they remarked in their journals that they heard that she might have died of disease at a fort a little bit up the river between them and Mandan. And then there was another remark saying that she was either still on the trail or something. But the idea that the Reverend here had, Reverend J. Roberts, in 1907, is that she remarried an Apache warrior and came to this reservation and died in her old age in 1884. Now, this is a good story, really, but I don't think it's true, because at that point in time, I don't believe that the Apache were here on the reservation quite yet. They arrived a good deal of time later because the U.S. government was going to give them a reservation, and they were on a train, and the train more or less just stopped here. And they said, well, let them stay here until we can establish a reservation, and to this day this reservation hasn't been established. They apparently live closer to the eastern side of the reservation, and the Shoshonean people live over to the western side. So this certainly is somebody. According to the Reverend, they were a trapper, they spoke French, they spoke English, they helped early explorers make their way over to Oregon. Clearly somebody important, but I don't know if it is Sacagawea. And also, as a side note, a little bit more about Little Pomp. He is actually the small child on the back of the Sacagawea gold dollar with a bundle on the back of Sacagawea. That is the youngest member of the expedition, and it kind of symbolizes a rebirth, a joining of European and Native American influence to forge a path forward on the Oregon Trail. A large push to identify the grave of Sacagawea was in order to kind of proselytize and preach to the Native Americans. This is one of the earliest churches. It was up in the Wind River Range until the 1870s, where the last Mass was held, and the Reverend at that Mass baptized 11 Shoshone people, including 4 grandchildren of Sacagawea, and it served as a schoolhouse and a place of worship and even kind of a local community hall for many years, until it was moved here, I believe, around World War I. And Sacagawea was reburied in the 1920s or 30s, grave identified in 1907 by another reverend and preacher in the local area, and was reburied here. And next to her you have memorials to her 2 sons, at least one of which is claimed to still be buried in the Wind River Range.